And hello, everybody, and welcome to Not the Zodiac Lounge. This is so weird for me to be doing a solo event and not have anyone to interview, and I'm really glad to see you all here. Imbolc is a very interesting holiday for me. It actually is very sentimental. It marks my initiation into mystery traditions, and that was in 1968. And I did the math before, and it's like 52 years, and I'm like, wait a minute, that is something very spooky. But it's a very exciting festival. It's a festival of light. But before we begin, I usually ask my guests, tell me a little bit about yourself, and I'll give you a little bit of my background, only my credentials as to why I am excited about teaching this class. Um, when I was 16 years old, I was fortunate enough to have been trained in tarot already, and my trainer was the descendant of the Visconti family. So I obviously learned on the Visconti Sforza tarot. And she had some books in her family that went way, way, way back. And apparently, I think one of her ancestors in the 1930s revived the Hellenic tradition that her ancient family used to follow. So after she trained me in tarot, she asked me if I wanted to learn more about mystery traditions. And of course, being a 16-year-old, I was all ears and I loved it. So I was initiated in a Hellenic temple to Zeus and Athena, but in a grove of Hecate, because prior to my initiation, I had to be trained by almost everybody who was part of the temple for a year and a day. And what they did is they took note of your personality as well as your acumen as you developed your fluency. And they decided, because I had a predilection to want to help and protect people, probably because of my childhood, which was kind of volatile, that I should be dedicated in the grove of Hecate. Now, what's interesting is that at the same time, the esoteric movement was just beginning in New York, and I discovered the Warlock Shop and the Magical Child, and I discovered Wicca. And whenever I said that I was made in the Temple of Hecate, everybody went, "Oh man!" and they got a little scared, or they thought it was really crazy. And then after listening to them talk about what they knew, they were only familiar with her destroyer aspect. But the fact is that Hecate is the guardian of. She was the patron of midwives. Many of them were killed during the Inquisition because they still worshipped her. Her job was to usher people safely into life, and then as she was going with you down the birth canal, she whispered in your ear every challenge you would ever encounter in your lifetime. And just as you were about to take your first breath of air, she silenced you by putting her finger on your lip. And that's why the ancient Greeks thought we had this little cleft under our nose. She is the guardian of the underworld. And in ancient mythology, the underworld is a metaphor for the unconscious, which is why she works so deeply and so quietly. But she is a nurturer. She helps babies be born. She watches over her children her entire life. And when you're ready to die, her funerary priests and priestesses usher you safely into the afterlife. Her destroyer aspect was made prevalent during the Inquisition because they wanted to vilify her. They made her some fearsome, horrible, just straight up bitch that would really cause a lot of trouble and cause a lot of pain to everyone. And she is like that when she is protecting her children. She's a very fierce mother. So if you are a child of hers, as I was, she will protect you from everything. And people who know me personally know some of the stuff I've been through and how sometimes it's miraculous that I'm even alive. It may or may not have anything to do with her. My jury is out until I know for sure, but I choose to believe that I do have some kind of protection because of my years of service. And the reason I'm speaking about her so much is that Imbolc is, according to the Wheel of the Year, there's a Wheel of the Year, it's a perfectly round graphic, and there's a horizon. So Imbolc is the first festival that is beneath the horizon, which means that it belongs to the underworld. And I'll get back to that in a minute, because you can't talk about Imbolc without talking about the harvest. Now, on the other side of the wheel, the first festival above the horizon is the harvest of Lammas on August 1st, or Lunasa, whichever you want to call it. So all of the harvests are in the light, above ground. And then we have Yule, which is still above ground. It's just a promise that light will return. And then we get February. And if you look at the February we're having today in New York, you'll understand why it's National Suicide Month. Because there's like, I don't know how many inches of snow outside. It's still snowing. I won't go out. I'm getting cabin fever. I'm really losing my mind. But just under the horizon, we're just about now to make our foray into the underworld, into the time of darkness. The Wheel of the Year was a calendar for the agrarian cultures in the temperate climates in the northern hemisphere. So a lot of Imbolc lore goes back to Celtic uh, mythology, which was very prevalent. Actually, Julius Caesar, when he wrote Bello Gallica, when he invaded England, had people infiltrate the Druids so that they could learn their customs and everything about how to sort of sway them over to their way of thinking. Didn't work. The Druids fought till death. They were very fierce people. But we do have one eyewitness account of all of history of Druidic festivals, including marriage, hand fasting and things like that. But the beauty about Imbolc is it's been cold now since November, really. And the crops have all been harvested, and everybody filled their silos with everything that they need for themselves and their family through the coming winter. And this is the time that they would just batten down the hatches and stay indoors. They didn't have heat. They had a hearth fire burning all the time. It was for warmth and nourishment. And they would teach their children, because during the growing year, the kids were working in the fields. The whole family was working in the fields from sun up to sundown. And then they were exhausted and had to do it again. So it was time to learn, time to explore, time to understand who they were, to delve into their own unconscious with the help of gods and goddesses of the underworld. And Hecate has always been affiliated in some respect with harvest, even though she was a goddess of the underworld or the unconscious. Because when Demeter had her fit and decided to let the world not grow anything until she found her daughter, it was Hecate who went down into the underworld and forged a treaty with Hades. And he said she can go up as long as she doesn't nourish herself down here. And he agreed to that. And then Hecate started pushing crocuses up, which you'll see next month, because that was letting people on the earth know that things were going to be growing again. And her priest and priestesses wore gowns that were dyed in saffron. And saffron is the pollen from a crocus, which is why it's so damn expensive. You can imagine how many you have to pick to get an ounce of those. But getting back to the Wheel of the Year and Imbolc, we are now totally in darkness, totally in cold. Even today, it's National Suicide Month. There are more suicides committed during the month of February, probably because of sunlight deprivation, depression, the cold. What we're going through right now as a country and as a globe is a little depressing because everything is very uncertain. And, it's really hard to have faith that things are going to lighten up again, especially when I can look out my window and see 18 inches of snow. So if anyone has done any planting or gardening, you know that there are certain plants that have to be winter hardied. They have to be planted in the autumn so that the seeds will freeze over, in the winter. And then at some point, as they thaw, the plants will be able to sustain a winter. We do that with tulips. There are a lot of trees. I had found a mimosa seed upstate when I had my house, and I had to actually put it in the freezer in dirt for 3 weeks and then let it thaw before I could plant it so that the tree would last through the winter, because it almost programs their DNA to do that. So what Imbolc is the acknowledgement that the first stirring of life is happening in that seed. It's not broken through the shell yet to make its way up through the soil and get into the sun, into the light, because it's way too early. But it is alive. And what's interesting is that the human embryo, after 2 weeks, finally becomes like an official embryo, where the DNA of the shell does not allow anything to penetrate it anymore, and it actually begins to form after 2 weeks into a zygote. So that these are all related things. So what this night represents is the first stirring of life. And that's why many initiations are done, many first degree initiations are done on Imbolc, Because after being trained for a year, you are then trusted to come to life. And you will have a period of 1 year and 1 day before you're up for your next initiation. And then that, in some traditions, it happens on a harvest festival. It could be as early as Lammas. Other traditions continue to do it on February 2nd to acknowledge the first stirrings of life and the new seeds that we've had. And other people just do it sort of whenever they feel like it. But traditionally, Imbolc is the first stirring of life. And I run my business by the wheel of the year. I get my harvest when they're ready, but I plant my seeds in the winter. And the ritual that we're going to get to in a little while is going to be reminiscent of that. And don't worry if you haven't planted any seeds yet, because you can actually come up with golds, because all of your seeds, all of your metaphorical seeds are actually going to be golds that you have. You can replant seeds that didn't bear fruit from you in the past if you want to bring those things back to life. And as you cultivate them, you'll see them eventually break through the topsoil. And then around June, around midsummer, you have to see who's struggling, who isn't. And there are some of your golds that aren't growing strong enough, that might be choking the stronger ones. That's when you do all the weeding out. And you can save those and plant them again to winter hardy next year. But that's when you actually focus on the crop that's going to give you the yield. What's interesting for me is that one of my seeds last year was to raise my public profile, because I shy away from the camera. I hate seeing myself on camera. I can't even watch my playbacks. And I thought, I'm pushing 70. I should probably get out there and start speaking and start mentoring, because as an elder, as someone who's going to be planted into the ground probably in about 10 years or so, I need to start sharing what I've learned. And miraculously, the opportunity to work with Scott and Esoteric Guides fell into my lap in November. And I thought, well, that's pretty interesting. Let's see where it goes. So hopefully I'll be able to keep this alive and I can bring it through to harvest at the end of the year. But I'm looking in chat and I see a suspicious amount of my former students. I raised part of my obligation as an initiate was to raise 13 groups. Why 13? There are 13 lunar revolutions in every year. That's how ancient cultures used to keep track of time. We have 12 months because the Gregorian calendar that was dreamed up by Pope Gregory, who hated the pagans, wanted to take everything familiar away. But if you really look at moon phases, 13 moon phases equal 1 year. So I had to raise a group of 13 people 13 times, which, to be honest with you, with my temperament, was a pain in the ass, because my style of teaching is a little bit different than what I've encountered in other mystery traditions. As I said, I was first initiated into a Hellenic tradition, then into Wicca. And there were a lot of similarities because everything was built around these 8 festivals of the Wheel of the Year. And then in my 40s, I was made a Mason. Guess what? The initiation was almost the same. The difference in the Hellenic tradition, as opposed to many others that I've encountered, because I've been initiated into a lot of Afro-Caribbean things, most traditions expect their teacher or their high priest or their leader to mold their students into a replica of themselves so that everybody walks in lockstep and stays together as a community and as a group. It's almost like our political parties. You have to just get on board, and that's your obligation. But in the Hellenic tradition, you never knew what side of the bed the emperor was going to wake up on. There's a good chance that your teacher could be murdered. We had to raise our groups, our children, to be able to stand on their own 2 feet without us. And even today, anyone who does know me personally knows all about my mouth. I have no control over it. I could very easily get shot for something I say. I can get hit by a bus. My obligation is to make my students be able to stand on their own, to be completely self-sufficient without me. My job was to teach them. And all of you that are here, I'm seeing a bunch of you, and it's getting really scary because this last group is like a pack of wild hyenas. They were the people. I'm just laughing because they were really tough to train, and I was happy that they were not easily housebroken. Um, I would tell them, I'm not teaching a course in ethics. I'm teaching you to make you adept at using the tools of a mystery tradition. We talked about divination, we talked about spells, we talked about cursing, we talked about uncursing. We trained in everything: chanting, understanding language, drumming, sacred rhythms, all of that. But I tried to keep their their character intact as it was when they came to me. My job was to educate them, not to change their nature. And I always did pretty well. But this last group was totally off the hook. If you want to identify yourself in chat, say that, because they were, JDB says wild ones, huh? Well, yeah, wild as, yeah. Thomas is one of them, wild for sure. They're crazy and bloodthirsty. And I love them all because each of them developed such a skill. Angela, who is one of my students, she said fire child. We used to call her fire starter after the kid in the Stephen King novel who would practice on how to do spontaneous combustion by blowing up chickens in her backyard. And I have to say, Angela, I have not seen any reports of spontaneous combustion within a 5-mile radius of your house. So I guess you got things under control. But no one that I've ever raised had more control over the element of fire than Angela. No fluffy bunnies. Yeah, that was my mantra. If you got anywhere near being a fluffy bunny, you got kicked out, and for like groups. Sam, yes, you were in that group for a little while. I'm just reading chat. So we've had some rockin' times, and these are all people who learned all of this, but their foundation was understanding the wheel of the year. I don't have crops. I live on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. I have like a window box that I don't even plant anymore. But it's meant to be taken figuratively, not literally. And this is how we enhance our lives and the lives of others. They these lunatics that I'm really getting a little scared because there's a lot of them now, and they're usually planning some kind of like attack when they gather in a pack. I hope everybody keeps themselves in check. Um, you're also welcome to come on screen if you want to, but we can get to that in a little while. But not to digress, we are beginning our journey into the underworld. This is a time of year to really get acquainted with yourself, to really dig deep into your soul and find out who you've become during the busy period. And right now, while we are at our most vulnerable. I'm seeing compliments. I'm almost getting ready to cry. I hate you all. I always will, and you know that that isn't true. My students, not everybody in chat. Sorry about that. Wow, we got up to 49 people already. So, Imbolc is the acknowledgement at the bleakest time of the year that everything has come to life, but it is still contained within the seed. We have promise that as soon as it warms up, it will be able to break through the seed, make its way up to the topsoil, and grow into a crop that we can eventually harvest. Now, what's really interesting to me is that this holiday, the beginning of the dark season, exists in just about every culture, and it continues today. We have Groundhog Day. Isn't that an insult to this beautiful, reverent holiday that we're now making it almost like something like a cartoon where a mayor who will sometimes drop the groundhog or not, depending on how drunk he is in the morning. We get to know that spring is coming. It's the promise of spring. Same way that Hecate would push up those crocuses, or is it croci? Who knows? Anybody know the plural of crocus? But she would push them up just to give people on the surface of the earth promise that more was coming, harvest was coming. So this is our chance to look out the window and say, you're not scaring me. No snow. You can go away or not. There is life. There is definitely life. Now, what's very interesting too is the way ancient cultures perceived the architecture of the human body. And our ritual tonight involves 13 candles. Each has to be lit on a consecutive night. We will start tonight. Some traditions make you do astrological hours. I'm going to use midnight as the dividing point. Some people like to get up shortly before the sun rises so that the candle goes from the darkness into the light. And that's the whole idea of coming from the darkness into the light, the illumination of the soul, the illumination of the mind, the illumination of the body. And on the 13th day, because every one of those 13 candles blesses the coming lunar cycle and the coming year. The 13th one actually starts from the 13th of February and goes into the 14th. And what is the 14th? What is February 14th? It's Valentine's Day, because they considered the heart to be the seed of the human organism. So it's about the quickening of the heart, and it still is, except that Hallmark and Godiva kind of took a little bit out of that and made it their own instead of, but we still acknowledge it unconsciously. So the tradition has stayed alive for one reason, and that is data reinforcement. When people do the same thing, say the same words, make the same gestures over a period of time for a specific purpose, it gets stronger and stronger and stronger, and it manifests more and more powerfully. So you can see in the 21st century, where we're all supposed to be not paying attention to things like this is supposed to be superstition and silly things that nobody in their right mind will believe. We still found a way, our culture still found a way to acknowledge it. So before I continue, because I'm also speaking extemporaneously, these are my notes. I have 5 words because I don't like scripted. Um, does anybody have any questions about the Wheel of the Year or anything that I said so far? And if you'd like to come on screen, please let us know. You can either use the prompt at the bottom of the screen that says ask a question, or you can type your question in chat. So I'll give you a minute or two, and I'll probably just keep on yammering until somebody actually has the nerve to step up. And I'm going to read through some of these. Oh my goodness, everybody's in such a good mood today. Chat line is really active. It's very sweet. Um, Angela, would you like to come on screen and ask a question or start a fire? Yes? No? Anybody? Okay. Angela said bring it. Uh-oh. You're going to love Angela. So bring her on. Angela's one of the most talented artists I've ever met. She's doing amazing murals for people. She's doing hotel lobbies. She's doing Venetian plaster. She's just an incredible person, but do not cross her, because like the rest of them, they will, she will retaliate. She will bring her fire to you. So while I'm waiting for that, we can get down to the planning of this ritual. And as I said, if you haven't done this before, if you haven't worked with the Wheel of the Year and came up with what plants you want to bring to harvest, you can actually, I'm sorry, Sarah's saying, Angela, put your house on fire. It's true. You can actually come up with them every night as you work them, or better yet, make a list. Now, many people get very ambitious when they're making their list of things to raise and harvest during the coming year. And I'm telling you now, keep it to 3 or 4 things at most, because every night you're going to have to visualize these things actually occurring in your life, these goals actually coming to fruition in your life. And after 3 or 4 nights, it's going to be a little exhausting and you're going to wish you never started it. So just keep that in mind, because you have to empower your candles. And Simon Deacon says he's going to open a magical divine door tonight. That would be great. So with that, uh-oh, fire starters here. Angela,
What is up, Aaron?
say hello with everybody.
Oh,
So what are you doing with Imbolc? And what do you remember from previous Imbolcs? How have they worked out for you?
oh my God, I remember my first one. I remember the first one. We did it in Sarah's house, actually.
Yeah. Oh, that was pretty. Yeah. Frank was there. And yeah, we
Yes,
were
everybody
running
was
around the
there.
table and I was yelling at you all for being slow.
Yes, we were building up the energy, and I remember the 13 goals. They were all major goals, and I realized by the time like August came, actually I realized by the time Beltane came
Hmm.
that I had too many major goals, and I knew I
Hmm.
had to cut some of them back
Hmm.
or make some of them
Yeah.
smaller. So just keep that in mind for the year ahead.
Hmm.
Make some major goals and some smaller goals, because if you
Yeah.
have too many big ones, it gets too much.
Yeah, and you have a chance to weed them out as the year goes on because you never know which one is going to take a strong root. And when we get to midsummer, then you're going to have to get rid of the weak ones that are going to be sapping strength from the ones that look like they're going to provide for you. Because it's not only about providing for you, part of harvest is taking what you need to sustain yourself through the dark months and then giving away excess to people who need what you have that might not have it on their own. So it's
As
about sharing. It's about sharing knowledge. It's about sharing the fruits of your harvest. I'm reading chat. Everybody's bitching that we made you draw blood. They stuck themselves with a little lancet and put it on a piece of paper and we burnt it to offer our life force. This is not
they're
the
bitch.
group I raised. They got soft. I don't
They
get that.
did.
I know.
Sam didn't get soft.
No, Sam will cut you, so it doesn't look at you. But to look at her, she's perfect, perfect in every way. She's one of the most beautiful people I've ever seen. Very prim, very proper, very elegant, but you push her, she's coming for you. And that is part of working with the element of fire, keeping it contained because fire, Angela, what can fire do besides destroy? What did I drum into your head that day when you threatened to tie me
Like,
to a stick and throw a Molotov cocktail at my feet?
seek and destroy is still my favorite phrase, but it's heal and cleanse. I got it.
Yep, healing and cleansing. So good. You remembered it's been like what, 11 years? And I just made you repeat it and repeat it and repeat it.
Heal and cleanse. Got it.
And
It's
that's
in the
how.
brain.
Yep. And hopefully it'll never leave. So, getting back to what we're doing, and thank you, Angela, for showing your face. I'm going to get other people up here if they want to
Where's
later
the other
on.
bitches?
Pardon?
Where's the other bitches? Come on.
They're going to beat you up somewhere.
I'm gonna call them
They're
all
all here.
out.
They're all here. They will come up on their own. Sam says she can't see you. She's taunting you. So, thank you for stopping in. You can come back up later on. I just want to get back to this lesson because we're going. Oh, Sarah said that she has Eric with him. Oh my God. That's a dynamic duo if we've ever saw one. But I want to get back to this lesson. So now that we know what it is, that we have to actually ignite, we have to acknowledge that our goals have taken root. This is how you go about it. I like to use tea lights. I have one burning behind me. The Zodiac Lounge sign is down for the night, in case you haven't noticed. Anybody who does follow my Saturday night crowdcast. Um, oh God, I just forgot what I was saying. I hate this. You have to prepare. You could use tea lights. They burn for 5 hours. Do not use anything that 15-hour votives are about the most you should do because they need to burn out the next day so you can reignite them every night. And I've had people use a tarot spread to represent every month, a forecast of what every month of the coming year is going to be for them. I've had people just plan it out on paper and build their goals around their regular schedule, depending on what kind of company. A lot of people work in seasonal companies, so they have to plan it around that. But we're keeping this very loose. It's not a mystery school tradition, by the letter ritual. It's something to give you the idea because there are a lot of people here who haven't studied anything in esoteric traditions, and this is just fabulous to be able to open and ignite that fire in your own soul to understand that better things are coming. And I'll repeat, we've been through a very confusing time, a very difficult time in the past year or so. And a lot of people are just very uncertain as to what their future will bring them. And this is an opportunity for you to center yourself and take control of your life to write the next chapter in your own life story. So, how do you go about it? You start by regulating your breathing. Make sure that you're quiet. If you live with other people, lock yourself in the area or ask people not to bother you until you let them know they can again. You should be alone. You need a compass. You need to find north, and you will walk into your area between the north and the east, because north is about manifestation, east is about the new. So by being between the north and the east, we're coming from what's already manifested, but has we haven't begun the new energy yet. So it's a perfect place to enter into your area. And then you can practice breathing. It's called pranic breathing, and you may have to do it a few times. I usually tap rhythmically, or you can use a metronome if anybody's a musician and has a metronome, because you have to breathe in. You have to first start with completely empty lungs. Breathe in through your nose and fill your entire lungs up to the count of 4. And then you hold it for 7. And then you keep the same rhythm going, and then you empty them completely to the count of 8. And you're going to have to count. You can snap your fingers. You can use anything metronomic to help you keep an even pace. And after 2 or 3 breaths, you're going to get it. You're going to know just how hard you have to inhale through your nose. And you're going to know how hard you're going to have to exhale through your mouth. So you inhale for a count of 4, fill yourself up completely. You hold for a count of 7. You exhale through your mouth for a count of 8. While you're doing that, you're imagining all the air you're breathing in through your nose to be prana, or golden air. And everything you're exhaling is dark smoke, dark, black, grayish smoke. And what you're doing is you're replacing any obstacle, any negativity, anything that's stale, anything that will hold you back with your exhale. I've even done it underwater in the tub. That's a little dangerous because sometimes you forget to bring your head up when you start to inhale, and that could be quite something. But for the most part, do that a few times. You'll get your rhythm down. Once you get it down, you will never forget it. And you're going to feel yourself, you're going to feel your body relaxing. You're going to feel your rhythm change. You might even get it. I'm not going to call it a buzz, but I'll call it a bzz, because something happens when you regulate and control your breathing. You're bringing your whole vibe down really, really low. Um, and that's good because you're entering the underworld. You're entering your unconscious mind. And then you're going to hold your candle in your hand, and you're going to focus on every goal you're going to ignite once you put a flame to that candle. Some people use matches. I use a lighter. I always have a big lighter. Some people get all crazy about that. Said, no, you should only use a flame from a working candle. If that's what you want to do, that's fine. Get a working candle. So light a taper that has no spiritual significance and light your candles from that. I've also become very fancy sometimes in my past, and I'll get a 7-day candle that lasts for 7 days. So that the same flame is igniting all 13 of my candles. You actually would need 2 of them. That's cute too. Sometimes this is my one of my famous sayings. Sometimes you have to get dressed like the Pope and say the Mass. Other times you could do something on the crosstown bus, depending on how much energy you want to put into it. But it needs to be consistent every night for 13 nights in a row. So you light that candle close to dark, close to midnight, which is why I'm saying make sure you get it. If you have to get up early in the morning and you need to be in bed by 9 o'clock, you need like a 15-hour votive or a 12-hour votive. If you're a night owl, you can even light a birthday candle at 1 minute to midnight, as long as it burns through midnight into the next day, because you're putting your intention into each of these candles, and you're holding it and you're meditating on it and you're visualizing every one of your goals. And again, not too many because you'll drive yourself crazy, coming to life, coming to fruition during the coming year. And then the minute you put the flame to that candle, it is alive. The spark of life is in those goals, and it carries through the darkness into the light. That is the whole premise of this ritual. I usually make it easy. I start with waking up the elements around me before I even get into my goals. I'll first, we're on the earth. I'll wake up the sky. I'll wake up the element of air with sky, fire, which is passion, or things that you need to defend or things that you need to get excited about. If you've lost your passion, you can reignite your passion for whatever your goal is. If it's your career, you're going to love doing it again. Um, And then I bring water, which represents the unconscious, the unknown, the home, anything to do with mothers and children or children and mothers, because the element of water rules motherhood. And then back to the earth, which is about manifestation. And then spirit, you can ignite your spirit. So you've already gone through 5 nights. If you don't want to be repetitive about it, this is a very loose format. And the reason I'm telling you so many things is not to confuse you, but to give you options, because you have to personally tailor this to matter to you. And then on the 13th night, when you're finally lighting that last candle, you have to quicken your heart, because the goal of accomplishing these tasks, the goal of bringing our harvest to fruition, is to share with those around us. And we can become very sequestered in the dark months, during the dark period. And that will guarantee that our own heart will quicken, and it'll fill us with love and enough gratitude to share. There's a couple of questions in chat. I'm going to ask them. If we don't have 13 candles, can we do the process for 13 days? Well, if you only have one candle tonight, you can use it, but you're not going to need another one until tomorrow night. So go out and get a dozen more. Should we dress the candle with an oil, perhaps? That's Lex. If you want to, get as fancy as you want to with this. I usually do. I use dragon's blood because that's a pretty strong fire elemental. So like a dragon's blood oil. It's not real dragon's blood. It's actually the sap from a Dracaena. I think it's a Dracaena marginata, or one of the Dracaena plants that looks like dried blood. Um, oh, somebody makes their own. Great. You should sell it. Sell it here. You could do very nicely with this. You can use frankincense, anything solar, anything that has to do with light, life, anything that can revive something. And that could work for you. You can use herbs. I often take a Bic pen or a stylus and I'll carve something into my candles. I'll make either a rune script, or I'll make a sigil that only I know what it means when it's done. So that I just reinforce that, because what we're doing for 13 nights in a row to make sure that we're consistent within the next 13 lunar cycles, which equals a year, is to keep ourselves focused on it and to put that intention out there and to change all these subtle little things around us. Is it really magic? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe unconsciously what you're doing is you're making such a passionate commitment to your goal that you're unconsciously changing things in your own personality, which will happen if you really focus on this, to accommodate that goal, to bring that goal to fruition. It doesn't matter how it happens. What matters is that it does happen. And this is a way to get you through the next 2 weeks, which are going to be hell, because this is the darkest time of the year psychologically. Ask any therapist, um, even ourselves. I mean, we get depressed, we give up more easily at this time. And by involving ourselves in doing something positive that has to do with light and the element of fire, and the speculation that we are actually making sure that we're going to bring our goals to manifestation, can be very uplifting. Erica wants to know, quickening our heart. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is a lot of times, especially at a dreary time of year, it's very possible to just remain flat, to be nonplussed, to be not excited. Quickening the heart means putting activity, getting the heart beating. This is why Valentine's Day is coincidentally at the end of this cycle of candle magic. So it's still celebrated as the heart beating. You see somebody and your heart beats, and you get hearts in your eyes, and you court them and you fall in love, and you do whatever you do with people that you date. I mean, I do all kinds of things. I'm sure everybody has their own shtick about how they go about that. But the quickening of the heart means enlivening. We're enlivening everything. Life has sparked in those seeds that are still inside their shell. So the same thing with your heart. If the heart is the seed of the human organism, then your own heart has now come to life. And if it's the seed of the human organism and we separate it from the spirit, what we're doing is we're making ourselves come alive in order to be excited about growing these crops, attaining these goals, manifesting these desires. Does anyone else have any questions or want to make any comments? Because I'm really beginning to hate the sound of my own voice at this point. And I do talk a lot as it is, and I'm just afraid that I'm going to get. Well, okay, Mariana Lee is saying, "Blessed Imbolc, Jade," and Jade, you're here. Great, great to see you here. Thank you for coming in. Does Sarah and Big Boy want to come on screen and talk about their experience, or anyone out there, anyone who's done an Imbolc ritual is welcome to come up on camera. Just put it in chat that you're willing to do that, and we'll have you on screen, and you can share your story if you've had a success doing this. Okay, so Danielle says, I just heard about this today. Can I start the candle ceremony tomorrow? Danielle, do you have a candle in the house? You can use anything. You can use an oil lamp, anything, even if it's a birthday candle, even if you just twist up a piece of paper and light it right before you're traveling. Okay. Well, if you want to start it tomorrow, you can. You can burn. Okay, you can burn paper. That's great. I've burnt all kinds of things. So was Angela. Well, I never burnt houses down, but I will always grab anything that's combustible and I'll use it when when I have some work to do and I might not have a candle handy. So I understand that Sarah and Eric are going to be coming on. This ought to be a riot. John, thank you. I don't know how much of a gift I am tonight. I'm getting a little crazy here. Does anyone have any questions about anything that I've mentioned or need me to clarify anything? Uh-oh. You guys get closer together because I'm only seeing half of each of your face. Two of my wild ones. So,
Hi, Uncle Trouble.
Hi,
hey,
Uncle Trouble.
Eric, what's going on? Sarah, what's happening, man? You guys look terrific.
Hi, Sam, Angela, Tom.
Frank is here, I hope. I think
And
he is in
Frank.
the house. Lori's supposed to be here.
Where's Lori?
She's supposed to be here. She may be. I don't know. I can't. I have to look at the camera, not at the chat room. So talk to us. Here's Frank saying hi. Okay, cool. So tell us about any of your Imbolc that worked out for you, that manifested for you, or any ones that are memorable.
Good or bad, Anthony? Because you know what
Doesn't matter.
happened when
Doesn't
I
matter.
did a ritual and somebody ended up in the hospital.
Yeah, but that was an Imbolc. You were just hating on your ex for being a dick. And then the next thing you know, he was in the ER and nobody could find symptoms and he was out a few hours later. But that had to do with a whole other tradition, which we'll talk about in another workshop. So, Imbolc, manifesting, getting your goals together.
Yeah, with the Imbolc thing I did last year, and I told you, Anthony, it just manifested this year, and I thought everything died last year with 2020,
Well, you
and
told
then
me,
January.
tell our audience.
Last year I did the Imbolc, because I wanted to change what I'm doing, my work and my career, and I worked so hard for it. It happened last year, but then again, 2020 was an unusual year. Nothing happened, and then first thing in January earlier this year, I got a new job, and it was a promotion, and things are manifesting right now. So,
and actually, it's a brilliant promotion that you got. Sarah is quite talented in research and big pharma, and working on a project now, or will be. Do you start that already, or are you starting soon?
No, my boss and my new boss are negotiating on when I can
what happens
transition,
when
but
you're good
hopefully
at what
soon.
you do?
Soon.
But it's one of the most fascinating, innovative, scientific
Yeah.
research and development projects that I've ever heard of.
It's really, yeah, it's really helpful.
Tremendous potential to, right
cancer
now,
patients. Yeah,
cancer patients, HIV patients.
Yeah.
Right now, you're working on a COVID vaccine.
Not on the COVID vaccine, but it's mainly it's for cell therapy for a lot of cancer patients. So it's
Excellent.
really, really helpful.
And it's a whole new discipline in treating that disease. So hopefully we'll have greater numbers to celebrate in survival, and just surviving treatment sometimes can be
Yes.
exhausting. But that
And
was a seed
helping patients.
planted, and it just manifested right before this Imbolc.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
surprised, well, I'm not surprised you didn't give up on it, because you're like a dog with a bone. When you've made up your mind and you've made a commitment, you don't let go. But it must have been daunting.
Yes. Yes.
So,
Mhm.
Eric, what about you? You want to share anything that you've?
Basically, one of the things the seeds I had planted was to have a little bit more responsibility at work, do more development in that sense. And like 2020 was my year. I'm
Mhm,
like, basically, I grabbed every boomer at work and forced them into the 21st century.
mhm. Okay.
So it's been a great year.
Don't
I
knock
know
us
probably
boomers.
people
We
don't love
paved the
that
way
me
for
saying
you.
that, but
We paved the way for you. So be very careful the way you treat boomers, because we'll still take a swing. What do you see how big you are? That's how hard you're going to hit the floor. The Chihuahua has spoken. But I'm very excited to hear success stories. And these are things that once you do them, you're totally focused on them for the 13 days in a row that you're doing this. And it goes underground, because once you're through the 13 days of repetition, data reinforcement, it goes into your unconscious, but it still continues to grow. And just when you're ready to give up
Mhm.
is when it bears fruit for you. So I'm really excited to hear that for you. I'm really glad that things worked out so well with you.
Mhm.
And thanks for coming on. Does anyone else in the audience want to come up with a question or a suggestion, share their own Imbolc traditions? I would love to. I would love to hear other people's take on this, because again, I'm keeping it very generic, just giving you the idea, trying to light that little fire inside of you to inspire you to make the commitment to seeing your year through. Because we are trained to believe that we have no personal power, that we need an intermediary. And it's an authority figure in religion. It's a priest, a rabbi, a minister, an imam, uh, politicians, law enforcement. Lately, the media is scolding us into submission. And by doing this, you're actually taking the initiative to create your own, to write your own next chapter. You don't have to walk in anybody, you don't have to march to anybody's drum. You don't have to walk any other line except the straight line that you want to walk. And it's a very empowering thing. It's a very empowering opportunity to give you the confidence to bring about things that you never thought you might be able to accomplish. It's about expanding your own growth. And it goes back to my earliest comments in this crowdcast about how I was trained to raise my students. You have to make a commitment to yourself. Um, if you're, the metaphor that I would use in class is, if you're hungry and you see an apple tree with one apple on it, you can sit under it and wait for it to fall, wait for gravity to give it to you. And you could starve to death waiting for that to happen. Or you can stand up and, if necessary, climb the tree and take it, because you have the power to do that. I am forever harping on the idea that every tradition tells us we are made in the image of the Creator, we're an extension of the Creator. But society has trained us to not act like it, to sit there in deference and wait to get a handout. This is a great opportunity for you to have an active hand in your own future. And with that, I will open for questions. If anybody has any questions about the ritual or about any of the steps, I can go over them. Or if you just want to share something personal, I would love that too. Or we can wrap it up. I mean, it's up to you guys. We're all here together, and I'm seeing a very active chat, but everybody's afraid to come on. Oh, we have fifth question. Do we have to use 13 different candles, or can we use one and burn it every day for a set amount of time? I suppose you could do that, but you would have to put it out the minute the sun comes up. So if you're up at that hour, you can do that. if you use a large candle and it doesn't consume itself, and you're going to use 13 different ones, you will then at the end of the 13th night have to give it back to either the element of water or the element of earth, because you've already given it fire and it's consumed air while it was burning. I live a block and a half from the Hudson River, so I usually go down there with a big bag every month and throw my candles into the river, give them back to the element of water, or you can bury them. You can bury them on your property and then let the earth break them down and consume them, because what that does is it transmutes the energy and only lets it rise again. So you're actually reinforcing your work when you do something like that. Okay, I'm just reading through some of these. Angela said she only burns down churches. Oh my God, I have one right across the street from me. Any questions? Anybody want to wrap? Does anybody want to say anything? Anything even unrelated? We have a 6th question in the queue. Let's hear that. Just confirming we burn the candle at midnight. Well, shortly before midnight, Jenny. You can light it anytime. If you have to go to bed early, you can get like a 12 to 15 hour candle that will burn past midnight, because the idea is to have the light go through the darkness and into the next day. I don't mind leaving lit candles burning. I'm usually up past midnight anyway, but shortly before midnight, and as long as it burns into the next day, you're good. You could even stay up and put it out a minute after midnight, but it does need to go from one day and connect one day to the next. Sarah says, can we include a deity in our candle petitions? Sure. You can make it as complex or simple as you like it. The main thing is not to be over ambitious, because you're going to be doing this 13 nights in a row. It's going to really get to be a pain in the ass after a while, and you might wish you didn't plan on planting so many seeds or going through the formality of a ritual. So you know your limitations. Now, I know you're a Virgo, so every I is going to be dotted and every T is going to be crossed, and that's a lot of work. So whatever you think you can stand doing 13 nights in a row without burning out, because if you do burn out and you're only going through the motions, you're defeating the whole purpose, because it's about breathing life into what you believed was dormant or gone forever, or bringing new life into new light into your life. And that needs to be consistent. You need to work it all the way through. How specific should our goals be? They can be very specific. Keisha, if you'd like to come on screen and give me a little bit more info, you can, but I can also give you a couple of examples. If you want to make a career change and you have something specific in mind or a specific industry in mind, you can use that. Or you can make it generic to keep your own fire going. And say the perfect career for me in this area. Okay, it looks like Keisha's getting ready to come on camera. Personal goals can be specific. A lot of people want to grow a healthier relationship with a partner or a family member. That's all possible. Can happen with coworkers. It can be anything that needs to be ignited, anything that needs to be reignited, anything that needs to catch on and take hold in your life. Anything that you had that you want that joy back again can be revised, revisioned, and reignited by doing this ritual, particularly at this time of year, because think of that seed was frozen and now there's a spark of life in it. That's miraculous. That's really extreme. So it's an opportunity to work with extremities. We have more questions. Very cool. Just confirming we burn the, okay. Mariana wants to know, which element should we envision first tonight? If you want to work with elements on the first 4 or 5 nights, you would have to start with air and then go to fire and then go to water and then go to earth, because you're going clockwise, because anything clockwise, whether it's body movement or if you're working with the wheel of the earth, anything clockwise brings things up from the underworld or the unconscious mind into the surface of the earth or the conscious mind. Anything counterclockwise is going to bring what you have in the light down into the darkness to be transformed or transmuted. Mariana wants to know also how to breathe right as we are doing this. You take, okay, I'll count it out for you. So first, empty your lungs completely. And I'm not going to make you wait long, so don't worry, nobody's going to pass out. So we're going inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And when you're inhaling and exhaling, you have to fill your lungs to their capacity and empty them to capacity on an exhale. It's kind of weird. You have to inhale really fast in order to fill them all the way up because you only have 4 counts to do that. And then you hold them for 7. Make sure that your beats are consistent, as metronomic as you can possibly do it. And then exhale and make sure that you get every last bit of breath out of yourself as you're exhaling to a count of 8. Angela says, be ready to face any insecurities you might have when planting those seeds. They will come up. You do it throughout. Okay, Danielle wants to know how many times, how long do we do this breathing? You do it through, it becomes second nature. You don't even realize that you're doing it, but you have to start yourself. And you do it while you're meditating on your candle and do it all the way through until you light it. And then I usually continue doing that because it's almost a form of meditation. It's almost hypnotic. And you're going to be getting a lot of ideas while you're in that state of pranic breathing. And then I usually tell people when your mind starts to wander, you're finished. That's all that that's all that your unconscious mind needs. You're not going to know exactly what's going on. You're going to feel it. You're going to feel very engaged in it, very invested in it, because a lot of things are happening in the unconscious mind. We're actually touching parts of ourselves that we were afraid to even look at. This is about bringing light into the darkness. And by illuminating ourselves, by illuminating our unconscious, we're actually healing ourselves. But we don't know consciously. When our mind starts to wander, it means we've done enough work. And you'll find that over the next 13 moon cycles, all of that information is going to come to your conscious mind and manifest. It's kind of like working in the quantum. You're actually creating while you're in that state. And quantum energy, quantum time has no, it's not linear. It's not minutes that make hours, that make days or months. Quantum time is timeless. Quantum state is timeless. So we create what we're hoping for. And then by time our linear life catches up to it in a few months, you're going to see these things manifest, which is why it's really urgent that you focus as strongly and as intently as you can as you're doing this ritual over the next 2 weeks. Somebody got kicked out. I don't know who. Somebody says, I got kicked out for a few. How long do you have the candles burn? You have them burn from before midnight, past midnight, into the next day. It has to. We're using midnight as a marker. We're not going to use sunrise and sunset, or we're not going to use planetary hours. So as I said, if you want, you could even use a birthday candle, which only burns like 3 minutes. Just do it shortly before midnight, and then it will burn out after midnight. So the candles burn until the next day. You can put them out if you're not comfortable leaving them lit while you're sleeping, or you can just snuff them out after midnight, but they have to go from one day into the next. Hi, Keisha. Keisha's frozen? Oh my God. Does anybody besides me see Keisha on screen? Is anybody hearing me ask that question? Okay, so Danielle's getting, okay, so breathing, then light the candle. Okay, so good. So I'm not the only person that can see her. Her camera, okay, fine. So I guess Keisha's camera is frozen. Yike. All right. There's a lot going on with our internet, and I know that also, I mean, there's a lot going on in the world that can affect our internet capability. But there's also a lot going on in New York, or if you're living in any of the blizzard states, um, there's a lot going on with our satellite connections. So that's about it. If anybody else wants to ask a question, either in chat or in the queue, do it now, or we can start winding down. 24 inches of snow. Wow. Angela, you have 24 inches where you live? Because the way you can handle fire, you can probably melt it in about 2 minutes. So roll your sleeves up and get to work. Thomas is frozen. Internet is the worst tonight. Mine's kind of weird tonight too. Well, I guess we should probably wrap it up because nobody seems to have any more questions, and I'm kind of finished with wait, I'm kind of finished with what I have with my presentation. So I hope you all. Oh, now we have more questions in the question queue. Okay, do we burn the amount of candles? Yes, it is sort of like Hanukkah. It is like Hanukkah. Do I do classes anymore? Yes, I do. Lex, thank you for asking. I did them in a brick and mortar building for many years, but because of COVID, a lot of people are afraid to come out. So what I'm doing on my personal website is I just invested in LearnDash software. It's NYU uses it for remote learning. And there will be classes. They can be live, but they can also be accessed very much like Crowdcast. So if you miss the live, you can actually take advantage of everything except any live dialogue that goes on. They should be up in about another 6 weeks, because I taught what many traditions call outer court, which is a little bit of training in every aspect of transformational work. I'm bringing them back. I teach tarot as a second language, and it's called TSL, Tarot as a Second Language. It's an 8-week course. My series, I wrote it in 1971, and as science continues to answer questions about mysteries, and we now know why there were more miracles in ancient times than there are now, I update my course. So it's sort of like a living document. It continues to evolve as science answers questions. And now that we really have some like hard data in quantum physics and quantum mechanics, a lot of questions are being answered. I love knowing who the man behind the curtain is. You know, we've worshipped Oz. Oh my God, that's a miracle. Well, now we know. Quantum science, subatomic particles respond to the way they're perceived. We've seen it happen. I've seen people will themselves to death, will themselves back to life. I personally was resuscitated in the mid-90s, and I wasn't ready to go because there were still a couple of people I needed to deal with. And the next thing I know, I made myself healthy. That's quantum science. So now that we know that, they're no longer mysteries. People will keep you in the dark about them because they want you to believe that only they can perform this miracle for you. And I'm talking about our religious leaders and traditional organized religions, and even some of the mystery traditions. There are some leaders who like that kind of control. But now that it's scientific, now that we have scientific proof, I incorporate that into it. So they will be coming up probably either in March or June. Again, I use the Wheel of the Year as my model. If you want, you can check my website, anthonycentral.com, and then there's a little, there's some icons on the bottom where it says education, and it'll bring you right to my subdomain, which is edu.anthonycentral.com. They are both secure, so you don't have to worry about anybody hacking anything. But I will resume those very soon, and I'll also continue them here. I'll do a lot of free workshops and classes here, so it might be cool to let us know what you'd like to learn about, because I've been doing this for more than half a century. It's scary to hear myself say that. So I have this, I call it my repository of useless knowledge, because often it is useless. A lot of people aren't interested in what we do, but I'm very happy to share. This is how I'm giving back. This is how I'm mentoring. Should you have 13 different goals? And no, I wouldn't do that. I would not do 13 different goals. It's going to be exhausting. You just basically come up with the things that you know that you really need, that you really want to bring in, or things that you started that didn't make it across the finish line. You can revive some of those goals. Now that you know why they didn't make it, you can start it over and breathe new life into them. So Frank says, just to make sure, 13 candles each night? No, one candle a night, 13 nights in a row. Begin each session with the breathing. And before you light the candle, you focus on seeing all of your goals come to life. And you put that energy into each candle every night so that the things, if you want your business to increase, see that happening. Don't put a time on it. Don't put an end date. Forget the calendar. You want it to happen over the next 13 months, rather over the next 13 lunar cycles, which makes 1 year. Once your mind starts wandering, that's after you're done. Yeah, so once your mind starts wandering, finish the session, but allow the candles to continue to burn. Yeah, start before midnight, burn through midnight. Excellent, yes. But the only thing you weren't sure of was 13 candles every night. That would be awesome. You could do as many as you want. I would love to fill this place up like St. Patrick's Cathedral. But the fire marshal might have something to do with that. Okay, so it looks like everybody's trying to beat it out of here. So I'm getting thank yous. Thank you for putting up with my mouth rambling for over an hour here. Keisha had a health question, and then you're answering it before I even ask about it. Good. Okay. Terrific. And I appreciate you trusting me enough to take my answer seriously, Keisha. I really do appreciate that. So with that, I guess we should wrap up. Wait, Mariana's air. No. Mariana, Leah. Just to confirm, air. The correct sequence is air, fire, water, earth. Jacqueline Christine thinks I rock. Well, she's only been around an hour. Give her another hour and she'll probably hate me because I cannot shut up. I will never shut up. Lex wants to know my website, anthonycentral.com. Like Grand Central, except that it's Anthony Central. So thank you all. Thank you for coming. Keep an eye on our calendar. Go to esoteric.nyc. Go to the events page. Every Saturday night from 7 to 8:30, I have a show called the Zodiac Lounge, which was named after my brick and mortar store on West 96th Street in Manhattan. Nobody's ever interviewed me about it. Maybe somebody will. That's a big hint to anybody that wants to ask me about that crazy place, because it totally did rock. And see me there. I have amazing guests. I just had an amazing medium on. I've had people that work with somatic healing and reconnective therapy. I had a crystal dealer. I try to keep it really moving, really interesting, all the things that we need. It's formatted like a talk show. My guests are fabulous. Nothing is scripted. It's only formatted because I think people need to speak from their soul extemporaneously. And that's what makes it authentic. And that's what we can connect with. That's what we can learn from. We can all learn from each other. And I thank you for the opportunity of giving me this time tonight. You could have been doing something else with it, but I'm flattered and I hope I've delivered for you. So thank you all. And once again, anthonycentral.com, esoteric.nyc, go to the events page. We also have other people doing other classes, other events. So check out our events calendar. It really rocks. Everything is done on Crowdcast and it's always a lot of fun. So thank you all and good night.